Okay, so let's start with something pretty simple. Let's just start with a basic static action pose. I say static action, so we want to tell that the action's going to happen, but we want it to be just in a nice static pose. So I'm going to have a guy or girl, probably a guy, ready to fight. So let's get started with that. What I don't want is I don't want to do anything too crazy just yet. I don't want too much foreshortening or perspective. And you can see I'm not really worried about erasing just yet. Just trying to work on getting the feeling of this pose. Guys, come on, let's go. I'm ready. Getting pumped up, getting amped. Alright, okay. Pretty simple, hey? Alright, so now we're going to go from this position here to the next position. So I'm going to do this exactly how I would do it. So I'm going to now knock it back. And you don't have to erase it all the way from here because we're going to be knocking it back again and again and again. So let's get in here. What I want now is I want my basic shapes. So we have a little bit of foreshortening going on with this arm and a lot more foreshortening happening with this one. And again, not worried about the hands for now, just worried about placing them in there. It is very important to do this stage Now this is something that I do with my feet sometimes, is I don't worry about going in and doing a blocky form like this, and instead I just do essentially the scribbly gestury phase. Same with my hands. Alright, chuck our head in here. Make sure we know where our neck is. Alright. So there we have that next phase there. So we've gone from our scribble phase or gesture phase into fleshing out the forms or the shapes, you know, making it a little bit more three-dimensional. Just knock it back again. Now don't knock it back too far because you need to see those shapes. So now we have to start thinking about anatomy. Okay? So let's start chucking our muscles in here. We've got our collarbone, which we know comes up this way. And if you got, you know, go back to those cheat sheets that were created. They're important. Okay? You don't want to be guessing with anatomy. Okay, that's not something that you want to be doing. So the arm is turned out, therefore we'd have our bicep on this side like this, and you'd be able to see a little bit of the back of the arm where the tricep is there. Now elbow in here, let's get our forearm muscles. Now start chucking in this hand a little bit tighter. Something basic like this. And I think what I've probably done is I've probably turned this arm, this upper arm, too far out. I don't think the bicep would quite be around that far, so let's knock it back. Try this again. So I think probably the bicep would be more like this, and we probably see a bit of the So if this happens, if you get to a point like this and it's not quite working out, come over to the side of your page, go back to your forms. So I think we had it this way, so let's do it like that. And let's break down what we need here. So this is where our chest goes here. We have our shoulder muscle. And I think I was correct the first time, having that bicep right up on this side here. So let's go back to that. Yep, I was definitely right the first time, but it's, you know, second guess yourself. Sometimes it might look right, but it might not be right, and other times it might not look right to start off with, but it might be right. So have a play around. Make sure you want to get it right. You don't want to just settle. Okay. Let's get onto this other hand here. Bring it down to forearm like this. Okay, let's keep moving down. Now, something to keep in mind is, again, this muscle here is lower than this one on the outside. So we're starting to get something now. And what I can probably do is chuck these chest muscles down a bit lower. I think I did them a little bit too high up. And I think that could have been why this arm looked a bit weird to me, because I think we can probably move this shoulder down a bit. Yeah, I think that looks a lot better. Got our hamstring back here. And we could put toes on this guy, but just for simplicity's sake, we might just leave the toes out and just assume he's wearing shoes. And what we've got here is this side is sticking out just a little too much. we go, that looks a lot better. Start to indicate this head now. And again, this is not a course on how to draw the head, so I will just indicate it, not going too crazy with it. Stick our traps in here. Okay, and again we can, from here, we can separate these abdominals if we want. You know, we could separate these out as well, but that is essentially our guy all posed out. So now we want to finish him. So I do see one small issue here, and that's the perspective of this foot doesn't match the perspective of that foot. So I think this foot's a bit more interesting, so let's try and that's better. They match a bit more now. Alright, so now I'm going to move on to the next step. So I'm going to knock this back again with my eraser. And then we're going to go in and we're going to finish this out how we would finish it for an actual illustration. Okay? So you can take it as light as you want. You could do this on a new layer, obviously. Just take the opacity of this layer down, make a new layer on top and draw over the top. I'm doing it this way because it's how I like to work, and also it can be replicated with traditional media. So pencils and erasers, etc. So again, this is not on the head, so we're just going to skip over that real quick. Let's get our neck in here. Let's indicate our collarbone. Now the trick to this is not to draw everything. Okay, I'm not drawing all of this muscle as much as I'm indicating it. I'm suggesting that it's there. The brain is used to seeing certain things, and so what will happen is it'll fill in the rest of the details for you. These are super simple hands. we'll do some a bit trickier hands a little bit later. Somewhat ugly hands actually, but again, we'll we could finish these hands out a lot nicer, but for now we'll just want to indicate them. They're not the most important aspect of this image, so we should be all right. So this is the buttocks muscle there that I've got sticking out, because I believe from this angle you probably see it. Again, depending on how ripped the person is, you can add extra muscles in here so it's more defined. So what I've done here is I've messed this leg up just a little bit. I've made it too side on, so I've got to bring this muscle back a little bit. See something a bit more like this, and again we could chuck some more definition in there. We can have our little abductor tendons and stuff like that in there, but for now I think this is pretty good. So the next step from here would be putting some shading on it. We haven't really talked too much about that yet. So we'll come back in the next lesson and we'll talk about shading the forms, and we'll finish this guy off, and then we'll move on to a more interesting pose.